Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Neeraj. I'm going to do a mix of graphics plus a mix of information that I haven't put out really, but I will speak about it. So try and listen a little bit more carefully today. What the US markets did overnight and what the futures are doing right now. Well, the markets did very well for themselves. So NASDAQ, Dow, S&P, all of them had a rocking day in trade. So pretty good going, really. The only set of stocks which didn't do well were the ones which were on the restricted list as far as Robinhood goes. And there's this wonderful chart on the Bloomberg terminal which shows how that basket of 50 stocks, which of course Robinhood eventually narrowed it down to 8. For all of you who don't know, Robinhood restricted trading in some 50 odd stocks when this whole retail mania broke off. And those set of stocks, the 50 restricted stocks, original 50 stocks, look at how they've come off. And that's what happens, right? When at times some of the unsuspecting investors are caught holding the bag at the very end, and those are the ones which suffer the losses. The smart ones get out. Anyways, I hope if you're trading, you're smart enough. Asia, ASX had started off about 1% higher when I first saw it really early in the morning. But just looking at the cues that the rest of the world has, I doubt that Asia would be any different, really. So HSI up in the green, and a lot of buying, by the way, into the Hong Kong stocks by the Chinese mainland money bags, really. There's a slew of money that has gone there. The HSI is doing well. Kospi seems to be doing okay. And I would reckon that the SGX Nifty too should be doing okay. We're flirting around with 15,000, I must say, viewers, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how whether we do it today or next week or thereabouts. Let's wait and watch. Okay, now let's talk about the day's trade today. The trade setup seems to suggest that the start is going to be buoyant and predominantly led by banking stocks, I would reckon, because the momentum continues to remain bullish. Yesterday, the intraday minor dip that came in the first half of trade quickly got bought into, and that's the point that I think we've now been looking at almost every single time, that small intraday dips get bought into. The banking sentiment is going to stay buoyant due to the strong SBI results, and boy, you got to watch out for that stock and the PSU banks. Now, I somehow get a feeling by talking to dealers, etc., that auto ancillary companies are the ones which are likely to start in a mid-cap up move. So do watch out for that pocket in particular, auto ancillaries. A bunch of people are making inquiries about it. The charts are looking strong. Dealers are saying flows are coming in for them. It'll be interesting to see what the auto ancillary pack is up to. And of course, the money continues to pour into India. Yesterday too, the FIs had a fairly positive stance, about 1937 crores. It may dwarf in comparison to what FIs have done recently, but it's not bad, I must tell you. And it's a busy earnings day with two very important names, Britannia and what they delivered in Q3, and Mahindra in particular, in the commentary that they give, especially after the Morgan Stanley report yesterday, wherein they upgraded the stock in a big way from some 864 odd rupees to 1112, if I'm not wrong. So watch out for M&M2 in the session. And the non-Nifty names, some very interesting names out there. Mrs. Bector's, with the kind of subscription that the stock got, very important one to monitor. I would watch out for Chola because of the recent upticks that the stock has had. And as I said, auto ancillaries remain in focus. So Jamna Auto and Jubilant Life. I mean, they've done some remarkable work in the recent past on the facilities, etc. Be interesting to see what kind of commentary comes out from Jubilant Life Sciences as well. So a few interesting names I think I would in particularly be watching out for. But it's a very busy day, by the way. There are a bunch of names. I've just chosen a few out here. There are a bunch of others also, which everybody should be keeping an eye out for. Remember, yesterday we spoke about Dalmia Bharat and how one should keep an eye out for, and today the results have been strong. And I'll get to that in a bit. But first, amongst the stocks to watch, even though Dalmia Bharat came out with a robust set of numbers, the first one has to be State Bank of India. Now, I'm drawing your attention to the CLSA note. There are others too, all of which have upgraded, but the CLSA note is interesting, and therefore I'm bringing your attention there. The results came yesterday during market hours. The stock was up 7%. But CLSA says that they expect a big re-rating, and they've upped the price target to 560. The current price, viewers, it's circa 350, slightly over that. They say that the third quarter performance was much better than expected. The third quarter gross slippages of about 25 billion is the best amongst the banks under their coverage that have reported earnings thus far. Imagine, it's the best amongst all the banks under their coverage which have already reported earnings, which would presume, I presume, be the large portion of the banking universe. And they say that the full year slippages of 1.5% of loans is the lowest that the bank would have seen in the last 15 years. That tells you a story. Here's one of the largest banks, if not the largest bank, coming out and in a COVID year saying that our slippages would be 1.5% of loans, the best performance in 15 years. That tells you a story, viewers. CLS is revising the earnings by 15 to 26% higher, and they expect ROEs to be 14% by FY23. Now, I don't know how many of you heard the talking point conversation yesterday. If you haven't, I urge you to go and hear what Manish Dangi had to say. If PSU banks get away from infrastructure lending, which is not their forte and the cause for the NPAs, and they stick to working capital loans, consumer loans, etc., with the network that these banks have, the asset quality remains stable, but the quantum of loans that they can give, which is profitable in nature, moves up, and that's the cause for re-rating of the banks. I think that's the bet that Manish was mentioning yesterday, and I urge all of you to hear that interview. It's the string of thoughts is pretty interesting, and that is what the brokerages are now echoing, that banks like SBI could do. Remember, SBI has a network which is unparalleled, so to say. So I'm not surprised that banks are so or brokerages are so bullish on banks. It'll be very interesting to see after the 7% up move yesterday, can SBI do more? Keep in mind, Credit Suisse has raised the target to 460. Morgan Stanley has 525 or thereabouts. Macquarie about 450. So a bunch of them have raised the targets there. Watch out for this one. And then I would have normally said Dalmia Bharat, it just got pipped by SBI because it's SBI, but Dalmia Bharat, fabulous set of numbers there. We spoke about the possibility of this happening yesterday. Revenues up 18%, net profit up 6.5 times at 182 crores. Mind you, this was expected. So please don't think that this is out of the blue. It was expected to do well, just that the quantum of performance has been very, very robust, with the margins at 24.5 versus 18.5. So pretty strong show by Dalmia Bharat, as has been the case with the most of other cement companies. Dalmia Bharat has also corrected a little bit, viewers, simply because of this whole budget law that came in around goodwill amortization, maybe, and which is why some of these stocks have corrected also, Dalmia Bharat in particular, but strong show. Let's wait and watch. The management commentary would be interesting. The other one is Jindal Stainless. Now, revenues up 9%, EBITDA up 58%. The company's witnessed higher domestic sales volumes. The EBITDA per ton at 18,800 is versus the guidance of 12,500 to 14,500. I must say, though, that a few smart investors expected the EBITDA per ton to be 19,000. So would you argue that it's been slightly below some of the smart money estimates? Yes, but I don't think the stock has done too much in the recent past, and which is why these numbers might get a bit of a thumbs up. Profit after tax is, of course, a consequence of what they've done on the operational front. So this is not surprising considering that the EBITDA per ton and EBITDA has been so strong. It'll be interesting to see how the stock reacts today. I've marked two more stocks, Brigade Enterprises, and the reason I bring this up is not because of the amazingly reported numbers. If anything, the numbers are not that great on the reported basis, but as Firoz Shah Godrej was telling us yesterday, in a lot of real estate companies don't look at the reported numbers because under the new accounting laws, they can't quite report work under progress. You should look at the sales volumes. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to tell you that before you take a call on trading this stock, try and look at the sales volumes in the commentary that the company is given before you decide. So please keep that at the back of your mind. Also remember, names like Hero MotoCorp, which has declared an interim dividend of 65 rupees per share, would be a very, very important stock today. The margins, there has been 100 basis points beat compared to estimates. So Hero could be a very interesting two-wheeler stock to monitor. Keep that in mind. And I think the one more stock to watch out for is Concor, wherein the expectation was that the government will give some clarity around the land lease rentals. That hasn't come out. And therefore, some people who had believed that the government will come out and give clarity and give some discounts to the company might unwind. So keep Concor at the back of your mind. That is what could happen. Last but not the least, the set of stocks which saw some very high delivery volumes yesterday, delivery-based buying yesterday. Amongst them, Team Lease on the Goldman Sachs note gained 15%, strong delivery volumes. Strangely, IIFL Finance doesn't feature here, but Indiamart Intermesh does, 11.5% higher with 23% delivery volumes. And of course, Hindustan Copper, 10% higher, 60% delivery. So some interesting names there. So do watch out for SBI and the PSU banking space at large. I think it'll be red hot even in the session today. If not today, if it takes a breather, then for the near term, PSU banks certainly seem to be red hot, but Hero MotoCorp could be interesting and Dalmia Bharat could be interesting. So a few names for trade today. The going is good. Could we touch 15,000 on the Nifty? That remains the key question. I hope we get the answer today. Thanks so much for joining in.